Well, good morning and welcome back from the weekend. Thanks for being a part of the Real Monica Adams Show. I'm your host, as you see there, Monica Adams. And for those of you that are brand new to the show, well, welcome aboard. We always say, let us know if you just came across it on your own or if someone said, watch this show. This is how you want to start your day, because we want to thank them. Again, do me a favor, make sure that you're following our broadcast so you always get a notification when we go live. Right now, we are on Facebook as well as YouTube and X. Of course, a lot of you know that as Twitter. So thank you so much for being a part of it. We have so many aspects of our show. Could be from entertainment, it could be medical, it could be real estate, it could be Wet Your Whistle Wednesday. There are so many incredible segments that we have done over the last year and a half, and excited to start some new ones as well. Let us know if there's any topics you'd like for us to discuss or any guests that you would like for us to have on. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that was actually one of the most popular segments that we have done on a Medical Monday, and it has to do with hormone replacement therapy, perimenopause, menopause, affecting not just women, but hormone replacement therapy for men as well. But this time, we're going to go back through the ages. We're going to discuss how it was first discovered in the 1800s and how different it has been treated over the years. We'll also talk about a study that was flawed and may have stopped many women from even thinking about doing hormone replacement therapy. And then bioidentical hormones, how are they different? FDA approved, as well as those that have contraindications, any side effects, etc. There's so much to discuss today with Tabitha Braun. She is with Elemental Esthetics. She is a family nurse practitioner, and she's going to be our guest a little bit later on this morning. We're also going to give you a little news you can use, and we're going to have to talk about the possibility of some snow coming again. How much? Well, let's find out with our aspiring meteorologist, Beckett Moore, in a segment we call What the Weather.
Good afternoon and welcome back into this new More Weather Forecast video. Have a great day, St. Louis. Stay prepared out there.
I love it, and I love the Christmas lights. We are all ready for Christmas. Can you believe it's 3 weeks away? This is nuts. Good morning, Beckett.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. Did you have a good weekend? Did you do any shopping?
Yes, my grandparents were in town, so my grandma, my sister, and my mom went shopping on Black Friday, but I didn't really.
You stayed at home and you just said, get me something.
Yeah, I was just obsessed with the snow.
I know you are. Beckett, if you don't know, Beckett loves this time of year, absolutely loves snow. He chased it last year, so he might be doing that again. So what did you think about what we have? Were you underwhelmed or were you happy?
Yeah, I was happy with it, definitely. When we were looking at the initial forecast, say on Wednesday to Thursday, those 2 days before the snow was coming in, we were talking about 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 inches here in St. Louis, and that ended up overperforming. I was talking about that on Twitter Thursday night. I thought it was going to overperform that 1 to 2, 1 to 3 forecast, and it did. We ended up seeing around 3 to 4 inches here in St. Louis.
Yeah, and hopefully a lot of you had a chance to get out with the kiddos. Did you see my videos? I was out with the dogs. It was absolutely hilarious yesterday.
Yes, I just watched them.
So a lot of you probably did the same, put the little sweaters on them, maybe even put little shoes on them. Well, we were talking about the possibility of some snow again this morning. That's what I was hearing. Not anywhere what we saw this past weekend, but should we be concerned for the morning commute, or will we be coming after that?
Yeah, so if we look at the current conditions right now, 27 degrees, and looking at the radar image, talking about that snow, we do have some snow showers to our north. That's pushing to the southeast. So this area of snow right here up towards Bowling Green, Troy, over towards Jerseyville there in Illinois, and up towards Springfield, that's going to be coming into our area. So a couple snow showers today from 7 a.m. to 11, and that's going to be causing around less than an inch to maybe up to an inch in some spots, but around half an inch for most, or just less than that.
Okay, so grab your gloves, maybe even grab the appropriate shoes just in case you're heading out and it's mid-morning or you're running back, etc. I'm always concerned, of course, as you know, with my driveway and the hill getting down there, so we'll see what happens. For the rest of the day and into the week, what are we expecting, Beckett?
Yeah, so looking at the bus stop forecast right now, again, 27 degrees here in the morning, some snow showers. That's going to be from around now until noontime. Afternoon, looking at only getting up to 30 degrees. It's probably our coldest day yet here, looking into the winter season, and cloudy. Meteorological winter did start yesterday. I know astronomical winter starts later in the month, but it's really getting into that winter season, and we are finally getting a cold start to winter here as we head into December. Now, looking at that extended forecast, tomorrow high in the low to mid 30s, 35 degrees for a high tomorrow, and sunny skies. Looking towards Wednesday, really warming up. This is actually a couple of degrees above average for Wednesday, 53 degrees, but then another quick cold blast coming through Thursday and Friday. 26 degrees is our high, low of 17. Friday, we get back into the 30s, but still very chilly out there. And then warming back up Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But I do expect these frequent cold blasts coming into the St. Louis area throughout the rest of December.
Well, I like Wednesday and I like this weekend. So I know you don't. I know you want some snow, but I like a little bit of the warm up. Beckett, thank you. Have a fabulous week, and we'll talk to you again on Friday.
You too.
All right, everyone, that's aspiring meteorologist Beckett Moore. Again, make sure you follow him on YouTube and on X. We're going to get into some news you can use, and then stay tuned for our talk about how the changes have been on hormone replacement therapy. This is going to be a good one. Get ready to drop in your comments as well. We're taking a look at all of you that are signed on, saying good morning to your community. Let's start off and talk about community and how the community has come out full force, not just here locally, but literally all across the country, after the senseless killing of 16-year-old Colin Brown. It happened over a week ago. The funeral for Brown is coming up on Friday. It will be held at the Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis. The Mass will take place at 10 a.m. Friday. The memorial visitation is set for 4 to 9 Thursday at Christian Brothers College High School, which is, again, at 1850 De La Salle Drive. Following the untimely death of Brown, the community has rallied. Saturday, his team, the CBC Cadets, took to the ice for the first time. Just before the varsity game, the Blues held a moment of silence in Brown's honor before facing off against the Flyers. And there was a walk yesterday held in memory of Brown at the Afton Ice Rink. There's also a coat drive that's being organized by CBC and his former club, the Afton Americans. He died on Wednesday after being shot November 23rd while riding in the vehicle with his father on Interstate 55 near Loughborough. Now, the investigation is ongoing, and there is now a $20,000 reward that has been offered for an arrest and a conviction in the investigation into Brown's death. I want to thank my dear friend Carl Lund. A lot of you might know Carl. He's an incredible photographer in our area. He's done so much for the community. He's the one that invited me on the Greater St. Louis Honor Flight. He has put $10,000 up of his own money. What a remarkable man. And then there are two other organizations that have put together $5,000 apiece, making up the $20,000 reward. So if you know anything at all, please call Crime Stoppers or contact your local authorities. Well, something has happened that President Biden said he would not do, but he has. So the latest out of Washington, President Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter, sparing the younger Biden a possible prison sentence for federal felony gun and tax convictions and reversing his past promises not to use the extraordinary powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family. The Democratic president had previously said he would not pardon his son or commute his sentence after convictions in those two cases in Delaware and California. The move last night, though, comes weeks before Hunter was set to receive his punishment after his trial conviction in the gun case and a guilty plea on tax charges, and less than 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump is set to return to the White House. There was a statement that President Biden put out last night, and it said, and I quote, "I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice." So if you do watch local or national news programs, you will see both sides of the aisle talking about this. Republicans, again, of course, frustrated, saying that he's gone back on his promise. So a lot of the talking heads will be out in full force, trust me, today. What else will you be doing today? A lot of this. So do some warm-ups of your hand as you get ready to get online. Yes, that's right. It is Cyber Monday. Shoppers expected to set a record on the year's biggest day for online shopping. Consumers in the U.S. are scouring the internet for online deals, looking to take advantage of the post-Thanksgiving shopping marathon. Even though e-commerce is now part and parcel of many people's regular routines and the holiday shopping season, Cyber Monday, by the way, it's a term that was coined back in 2005. It's become the biggest online shopping day of the year thanks to the deals and the hype that the industry has created to fuel it. Adobe Analytics, which tracks the online shopping, they're expecting consumers to spend, are you ready for this? A record $13.2 billion today. That's 6.1% more than last year. That's going to make it the season's and the year's biggest shopping day for e-commerce. Consumer spending for Cyber Week, which is the 5 major shopping days between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday, provides a pretty strong indication of how much shoppers are willing to spend for the holidays. Many U.S. consumers continue to experience sticker shock, however, following the period of post-pandemic inflation. It left prices for many goods and services higher than they were 3 years ago. However, retail sales have remained strong. The economy has kept growing at a healthy pace. At the same time, though, let me say this, credit card debt and delinquencies have been rising. More shoppers than ever are also on track to use the buy now, pay later plans this holiday season. That allows them, of course, to delay their payments on holiday decor, gifts, and other items. Did you know, though, that U.S. shoppers spent $10.8 billion online already? That was on Black Friday. That's a 10.2% increase over last year and more than double what consumers spent in 2017. When Black Friday pulled in roughly $5 billion in online sales. Consumers also spent a record $6.1 billion online on Thanksgiving Day. So we are definitely off to a great start as we have just 3 weeks left before Christmas. All right, it is 7:12, and you're up to date on what we think you'd be talking about today. And now, don't go anywhere, because we're going to continue a discussion on something we did several months ago. And as we've looked at our viewers, we have seen so many of you reach out, talk to me, email me, make your comments, and even the numbers showing that it was one of the most popular discussions we've had on a Medical Monday. So we thought we would continue this. Hormone replacement therapy. But today we're going to go back, way back into the 1800s when hormones were first talked about, menopause, perimenopause, 1800s. And then we go into the early 1900s, how it was originally treated and how we have changed over the years. We're going to talk about synthetic. We're going to talk about bioidentical. We're going to talk about a flawed study. We're going to talk about both men and women, and we want to hear from you. So be sure to drop your comments in. Any questions you have for my guest, Tabitha Braun from Elemental Esthetics. She is a family nurse practitioner, and she will be in the blue chair when we return. This is my wonderful role model, one of my best friends.
She's, oh my gosh, you got a long life. You could probably live to be 130 or something. And I said, oh God, I hope not.
It's getting hot in here. Don't take off all your clothes.
I'm not going to take off my clothes. On the radio tape, going to
Kansas City, Kansas City, here I come. We're gonna speak. We're not gonna spank anybody. We're gonna speak about knowing your value, and then I'm gonna.
I'm going to spank them.
If you don't know your value and you don't grab hold of how important you are, I'm gonna spank you. Folks, you never know what you're gonna get with her.
Monica's show. It's very informational, but more importantly, inspirational. If
people such as myself and others can come out and talk about real issues that are taking place in our communities.
These are amazing, really, really important topics that don't get discussed enough.
It really just promotes people who are making change and doing good in their lives.
Welcome back. 7:15 on the nose, and thanks for being a part of the show. Remember, again, to let others know to follow us. Get that notification. Remember to click on follow so that they know when we go live. And pick the platform that works best for you. This morning, we're on 3. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and on X. Again, this is a topic that we discussed several months ago, and I have a feeling we're going to do this many times on this show because it's been so popular. We want you to make any comments, any questions of what you've gone through. We're talking about hormones. We're talking about perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. We're talking about men and women alike. But one of the things that we didn't do, and I love what our guest has come up with for you today, is to go way back in the ages. Let's go back to the 1800s when it was first discovered. And how was it treated back then? Let me introduce my guest first of all, Tabitha Braun. Tabitha is with Elemental Esthetics, Family Nurse Practitioner, and so many letters behind your name. You are a very intelligent woman. Thanks for coming in, by the way.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So I love all the research that you have done. I want to go back in the ages. You've provided us with some really incredible information about when it was first discovered. 1800s?
Yeah. I mean, I think they've always known through the ages that there's always been something that happens in life to women, especially, even before that, from an evolutionary perspective, we have to, think about women, or actually humans, they're the only species on the planet, besides primates maybe, that can go through menopause and still have life on the other side. A lot of species, once women are done reproducing, they die. So it's very interesting that while we're at the top of the food chain, we have other things that we have to deal with as well. But yeah, so, this is one of them.
So looking at other species and looking at us, why is it that we're able to live after? Is there any studies into that?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't exactly know. I mean, primates and humans are Homo sapiens.
Yeah.
So, we definitely have the hormones. I'm not a anthropologist or
that would be interesting to look into for sure.
As far as like what other species go with, but yeah, I mean it's very interesting. And back in the day we used to not live near as long.
Right
now we're living much longer due to science and
Yay for science.
Yay for science.
Let's go back. So we're going to look at historical perspectives regarding menopause. So we're going to go to 1821.
Yes.
That's when the term was first coined?
Yes. That's when they started using that term. It's like a pause in their menstruation, basically. So we get menopause. But it was a French physician that, there he is in all of his glory. It's very interesting because he actually divided the symptoms up into 3 groups of nymphomania, which, to be honest, I don't know where he was getting that information.
I really wanted to know. Where, what?
Yeah, nymphomania, melancholy, I think a lot of us can relate to. And then also the hysterical suffocation, which, another little backstory, if you talk about the uterus, and hystera is term for uterus, and then, so anyway, it's just, I love history. So this is a very fun thing for me to talk about. And I think it's important to understand where we've come from.
So in 1821, he first was seeing those and then talked about, again, the pause in menstruation and then called it menopause.
Right.
But how was it dealt with and treated back then?
I don't think they really had a lot of treatment. I think they were women were written off, kind of like they just
deal with it?
Deal with it. I mean,
well, Tabitha, I'm going to say that we haven't changed with some people's mindsets.
That's true. That's true. I mean, if you think about, even Mary Todd Lincoln, she was depressed for a majority of her geriatric years and, basically told to deal with it or take some non-approved medication for it. So,
well, and as we go back through this, I want you all to drop in any comments that you want to, because I will say, Tabitha, there are some women who wrote in last time and said, I go to my OBGYN and they kind of laugh at me and they say, oh, whatever, just deal with it. Still to this day, just deal with it.
Well, that's essentially how my mentor got into it. She was going to her own physician, and by the way, she's a nurse practitioner. She was going to her own physician with all these symptoms and was like, what can I do? And she actually sought out the treatment plan for herself and actually started seeing and training with a trailblazer here in St. Louis. But
so your mentor was told, it's just going to have to be something you're going to have to live with?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
How
And
many
that
of you,
was
by the way,
very,
I
very
want to
recent.
ask, how
Yes.
many of you that are watching now, or you can do hashtag replay when you watch this later, let us know if that's still, all of these years later, are you still told, there's nothing to do about it? You're going to have to deal with weight gain. You're going to have to deal with mood swings. You're going to have to deal with irritability, night sweats, day sweats, not sleeping, all the things that, again, are in perimenopause and menopause. If you're still told that, fire your doctor.
Well, or have a real conversation, I guess, because we have to also take into consideration that a lot of physicians, and we'll definitely, I think, get to this, really relied heavily on results from the Women's Health Initiative.
Yes.
That came out in 2002. And so I know we're going to skip ahead to that in a little bit. But so I think a lot of what we learned from that information was like incorrectly applied. And so
yeah, we're going to talk about
get
a flawed study. And one of the things that I'm worried about is that that's still in some people's minds and that they are fearful of even hearing the word hormone replacement therapy. Tabitha, I will tell you, for a long, long time, until probably within the last maybe 5 years, that I start to trust medicine again and say, okay, with me, a lot of you know that I have a blood clotting disorder. And so I was very apprehensive. A lot of women, and men for that matter, were apprehensive because they believed that they would get breast cancer or many other forms of cancer.
Correct.
But that's the flawed study we're going to get into. Before we get to that, Tabitha Braun, again, my guest from Elemental Esthetics. Well, let's talk about 1821 and then going all the way to then 1920.
Yes.
So what happened in 1920?
So in 1920 is when the medical community in America and abroad really started to try to define and what was happening to women as to why they were going through this change in life and what was menopause and what are some things that we can do about it. And so that's when they really started investigating and realizing, it's due to decline in estrogen, and then they're not able to reproduce. And so what role does estrogen play on the body and what symptoms do they have? And so that is when in 1920, that's where we ended up. And the earliest treatments was taking estrogen and stem cells from placentas or umbilical cords. That was in the early 1900s.
And from then to what we use now, what did they see what was
1940s.
wrong?
I think there was just not a lot of availability.
Gotcha.
And probably only the very wealthy had access.
Was it controversial back then?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then it changed. So let's go into 1940. So
Yes.
20 years later.
Yes. So in 1940, researchers were trying to come up with other ways of replacing this estrogen. And they found that if they impregnated horses, they could extrapolate some of the estrogens from the horse urine that were considered similar, not identical, but similar to human estrogen molecules.
Interesting.
In a sense. And it was much easier to produce because they could get large quantities and produce it. And so, was it 19? I got to refer to my notes
go
here,
ahead.
I'm sorry. So then Premarin in 1942. So that's when we get Premarin. In 1942, that was the FDA approval for menopause. And that is what we call a synthetic estrogen that is still to this day made from horse urine.
So 1942 to now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And go to 1995 for me.
So in 1995, they came out with another synthetic hormone, estrogen, in combination with progesterone.
Okay.
Which is the progesterone is also synthetic as well. And so that came on in 1995. And so what's interesting to note about PremPro is, in general, when we're talking about hormone replacement, if you have your reproductive organs, meaning you have not had a hysterectomy, and not even a partial hysterectomy, if you still have your ovaries, if you're going through hormone replacement therapy, you should be getting estrogen and progesterone, not just estrogen. So that's the other thing to think about. From 1942 to 1995, women are being treated with Premarin, which is just estrogen. But what if they had had a hysterectomy? Or what if they didn't have a hysterectomy?
Right.
Now they have to also take progesterone.
And so, so let's talk about that aspect.
Yeah.
So since they weren't for what, 50 years?
Right.
What was happening to those women?
They could have the same things that we were finding from the Women's Health study, but you could have increase in breast cancer, strokes, clots, because when we talk about hormones, we got to keep everything in a balance. So if you still have your organs and you are taking estrogen, if you do too much estrogen, there may be people that are at risk for breast cancer and those types of cancers that actually feed on estrogen.
Okay.
So if we are not giving them progesterone to balance out the estrogen, then they could end up with endometrial hyperplasia, which is just a fancy word for proliferation of all these endometrial cells and ending up with breast cancer or endometrial cancer.
Again, this is the beauty, and I love it. I mean, by the second, medicine is always changing, bettering for each and every one of us. If you're just tuning in, again, Tabitha Braun, my guest from Elemental Esthetics, talking about one of the most popular segments that we've had on a Medical Monday, but we're going really deep into research. I saw a comment come in. Julie said, "I'm so glad I kept fighting until I found help." Again, I think that's the one thing
Julie.
that, right? Yes, you've got to be, we say this a lot.
Yeah.
You have to be your own advocate.
Correct.
And as she said, if you don't want to just go and say, forget it, I'm finding a new doctor, then have a really deep discussion with your physician and say, well, what about this and this and this? I know others are doing this.
Yes.
And if you don't agree with what they're prescribing for you, that's why there are so many doctors. And ask around. I mean, that's my biggest thing is word of mouth from those you trust the most. Before we get into the study, Tabitha, you mentioned something that I think is really important that I want to stress again. So if we still have all of everything down here.
Yes.
You need to make sure that you're taking both.
Yes.
Right? That's got to be stressed. So if
100%.
if anybody is prescribing for you and they're not doing that, you need to question that.
Yes.
Because then you're at higher risk.
Yes. So if maybe you don't know if you're at risk, right? But that's going to just increase you exponentially into developing something because you have all this unopposed estrogen that's floating around and you've got your ovaries and your uterus that utilize that estrogen, but if they have too much of a good thing, it could end up badly.
So let's break this down for men that are watching as well, and they're hearing about, I need to get checked and have my labs done and see what's going on with my testosterone. Because if you're having issues, so what issues would men be having if they have low testosterone?
They'll have low libido, decreased energy, just feeling real fatigued. Those are like the most common.
And they lose muscle mass?
They can lose muscle mass. Those are some of the most common things, but usually it's the fatigue, I think, and the loss of libido that bring men thinking,
that gives them
what
the aha?
is wrong with me? Yeah. Why do I not feel this way like I did in my 20s, you know? So,
well, and the same thing is, though, I don't want you all to just chalk it up to, I'm aging, I have to deal with it. Right. I love the fact that men now have that aha moment of, so I can feel different as well.
Yeah.
But I want you to watch, though. There are some clinics out there that just want you to go in and just get jacked up so high on testosterone that's dangerous.
Right. I mean, you always, anytime in hormone replacement, you want to start low and go slow. You can always tweak things. You can always add. it's hard to take away. You can certainly back off your dosage, but that's not gonna, you may end up with some untoward side effects like mood swings, they call them roid rages, you know, the anger, lots, very sexually perverse, you know, like wanting to be in the bedroom all the time. And then there's even some, which women can also get, like acne, hair growth in areas that we would prefer not, like on our face. So, and I say that as being side effects, there are treatments for those, but sometimes it's better to start low and go slow and see how you do. The ultimate goal with hormone replacement is that it's individualized for each person. And so if you are starting low, going slow, you're going to achieve your goal and how they feel much safer.
Did you coin that phrase? Because you need to put it on a t-shirt.
No.
But Elemental
so.
Aesthetic, hormone replacement therapy. Start low and go slow.
No. I'm sure I got that from some. Not very good at coining phrases. So.
But it's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. If you have any comments or questions about what you have dealt with, I want you to drop them in right now. Feel free to ask Tabitha. She's going to be on with me here for the next half hour.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the flawed study. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how it may have halted so many of you from doing any type of hormone replacement therapy. And I want to talk about the difference of if you're going to a doctor, if they say, well, we want FDA approved. What's the difference between that and bioidentical hormones? We'll talk about risk factors, contraindications, so many other things. Don't go anywhere. More with Tabitha on The Real Monica Adams Show when we return.
Discover your full potential with a personalized styling experience. Designing, customizing, and transforming the looks of men and women. Revamp your individual style and embrace what makes you, you. That's real confidence.
Well, we're mentioning that Tabitha is with Elemental Esthetics. They're located right here in this building, 425 North New Ballas Road, and they're in this beautiful suite. You walk right in to Suite 206. I've been mentioning so many great things. In fact, Tabitha can also help you when it comes to consultations on weight loss, whether it be medical or non-medical. Then it's all the beautiful side of aesthetics, right? So gorgeous facials that you can go in. Actually, I told the owner, who we'll have back on in a couple of weeks, Jennifer Warman Bloss, that I need to come back in for a facial, right, as we get ready for the holidays. She said she gets really busy, she and those that work with her, right around this time of the year, as everybody gets ready to see all the family and friends they haven't seen in a while, and they want to look 10 years younger. I also am fascinated, not just by the facials and the lasers, the microdermabrasion, the dermaplaning, the IV hydration therapy, the red light therapy, that incredible salt room that so many of you, I'm saying, need to go there right now, because I'm hearing flu, COVID, pneumonia, all these things that are going on. I went in there before I went to Italy, and it really opened up my lungs and helped me to feel better, breathe better, and actually I think it allowed me to get rid of the symptoms earlier. You can even go and get your nails done there. So many things at Elemental Esthetics. If you haven't made the call for yourself, do so today, 314-279-6069. And don't forget about those gift cards. It's a great time of year for you to be getting gift cards for those that you love on your list. Tabitha Braun, again, she is a family nurse practitioner. She's with Elemental. How many years have you been there?
A year and a half.
Year and a half? And what do you love most about being there?
I love seeing the repeat. I call them patients because I come from the hospital, but the clients and the people I work with are phenomenal. But I love seeing them and getting to know what's going on in their life and we share back and forth. And so getting to see the amazing clients are always, and they're usually in there routinely. So we're always keeping up with each other.
Well, and the thing we're talking about today, again, hormone replacement therapy. She also does the consultations for weight loss. It's getting an opportunity to see that person transform into the best version of themselves, right?
Correct.
They're happier.
Yes.
Their lives
I
are
am
better.
a firm believer that if you look and feel your best, it's going to radiate outward. And so...
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I always say it always comes from within. Okay, before we get into the study and what was flawed about it, let's look at some questions. So Michelle just said, this is good stuff. Thanks for coming on the show. Stephanie said, my friend and I went through menopause at the same time. Boy, we used to get crabby and our boss told us to take medicine, right? People just dismiss it. We both got through it the natural way, but I don't want you to be dismissed. I mean, that's the biggest thing. So Tabitha, let's talk about the study. So the study was done in 2002. July of the results.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was conducted by the National Institutes for Health. Mm-hmm. It was for women 50 to 79 years of age. Is that correct? But I think the thing that we've talked a lot about is that a lot of people were going on hormone replacement therapy, but it was too late. It was what, 10 years into?
So the current recommendations from the National American Menopause Society recommends that you start within 10 years of going through or starting menopause, or if you are less than 60 years old.
Okay.
So already that study had women who were from 50 all the way up to 79. And only, I think, 30% was less than 60.
Yeah. And so at the time, and this is what I remember doing news many, many years ago, and I remember all of us talking, it was like headlines, discovered that there was an increase in risk for breast cancer, heart disease, stroke, and other things. But again, it was a flawed study.
Correct.
But that stuck in people's minds.
Absolutely.
Do you think it still is to this day?
I think so. I think it's taken a lot of time for...
Try to erase that?
To try to erase that. And, and not all providers are versed on this.
Mm-hmm.
Even I did a whole paper on this in my last year in my master's program, and there are even residents going through med school, going through their residency, who don't really get a lot of training on this. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the providers that are out there right now that are using some of the alternatives are more functionally based. Right. And so they've kind of had to seek out that information. And there have been studies and stuff go on, but maybe they're not in mainstream.
Women used in the study were 12 to 15 years past the onset of menopause.
Yes.
So many flaws that were done back then. When was the aha that this was a flawed study?
I think I started seeing research published like 2005 to 2010, I think, is when they really started taking a closer look at things. But I do think the damage is done.
So let's talk about some of the misinformation. So women in the United States from January to June of 2002 to January to June of 2003, there was a 66% reduction in Prem-Pro prescriptions written and a 33% reduction in, is it Premarin?
Yes.
Premarin prescriptions that were written. Again, things started to go down because women were like, wait a minute, I'm at risk for this and this.
I'll be all.
Right?
So they were making the decision that maybe it was just for them to deal with. Mm-hmm.
So when did it start to change from what was done back then to when did the whole bioidentical hormones come about?
I would say, I don't have an exact date, but I know that they've really been talking about them probably 2010 maybe to now. Is kind of when things are starting to change a little bit. And so the thing to take into consideration when you talk about bioidentical is that they're more of a natural source. So they come from plants. So when they were looking at how we could make this safer, they looked at wild yams, soybeans, and I think there was one other like phenoliques or something, I'm probably saying that wrong, that they were able to decide that the estrogen molecules coming from these foods were actually identical to humans.
Interesting.
And not just similar. like we had with the horse urine.
So yes, if you just
sorry.
synthetic, yeah.
Yes.
But if you're tuning in now and you missed the beginning of the show, we went back into the 1800s. You got to go back to the beginning of the show and hear everything that we've discussed up to this point. Now, let me ask this though. So we're going from, again, what was used back then, still is though, right?
It is.
Yes.
Yep.
So
it is still the FDA approved hormone treatment out there.
And let's go back to a discussion. We're going to go personal here for a second. I actually reached out to a past guest who was very worried about what was being prescribed for myself. What did it make me do? No different than this study, Tabitha, of me going, all right, never mind. And I stopped completely, cold turkey, stopped for probably 4 to 6 weeks until I sat down and was talking with you, which is probably not a good thing because if we do stop, what happens?
Well, you revert back and you start having the symptoms again.
So minor hot flashes were starting to come back to me. I've never really had a problem with sleeping, which is a good thing. I knock on wood that I haven't had that. I know a lot of you, and I have so much empathy for so many of you that deal with every single symptom that's possible with menopause. But I was a little worried because of my blood clotting aspect. This is an actual OBGYN who said that her only mindset is going to FDA approved. I sent you this information, and when you received that, what were your thoughts on what she had said?
I think a lot of us are skeptical, at best, of the FDA, right? There's been things that have happened over the last few years. So I think some people are just skeptical in general. Some people want to just be able to take their own health into their own hands and decide for themselves what they think is best. What I did was I definitely took the concerns of that provider into account, but then I also did some more research to try to see what was it that she felt was so harmful for you. And I think what we determined was that you were actually getting the progesterone in the cream versus oral progesterone, micronized progesterone, which is bioidentical, not synthetic. And I think she was just also a provider that didn't really maybe know much about bioidentical hormones or just preferred to stick with FDA
I think she preferred to
regulated
stick with
medications.
yes.
And that's okay. There
Which
are
I
some
believe-
providers like that, and that's
okay,
fine.
yes, and what she just said is true. I didn't mean to talk over you, but it is that there are many OBGYNs that only want to go the route of FDA. Well, it was also the fact that she had a problem with the fact of so many things have changed since the flawed study, and so she trusts the FDA, and she wanted it to be covered by insurance because,
This is not.
Yes, so I want to stress that for all of you that look into the bioidentical hormones, it's not covered by insurance, right? And we don't have a magic 8-ball to say, hey, is it ever going to be? I hope so.
I hope so. I hope that there will be some changes where there will be more research done. But as of right now, they're being manufactured in compounding pharmacies that do have strict rules that they have to follow.
Right.
But they differ from state to state only because they're regulated by the state versus the FDA. So.
Again, these are all advancements that we hope someday will be, because we look at things that are approved for insurance purposes for men, and then you come back and go, well, what about us? So many times we feel like we're just sitting here and we're waiting for somebody to toss us a life preserver because of the things that we're dealing with. But I am today talking about both men and women. So let's talk about one other thing before we go a little bit deeper into the bioidentical. I think this is very interesting of some information that Tabitha provided us. So the impact, how American women and the American economy have been impacted by menopause and the flawed results, again, of the Women's Health Initiative study. The data that's been extrapolated from the National Ambulatory Medical Care Survey, developed from the National Center for Health Statistics, which falls under CDC, from 2018 to 2019, revealed that only 3.8% of middle-aged and older women reported taking hormone replacement therapy. Let's talk about how many people lose days at work on average. The study completed in 2021 by the Mayo Clinic revealed that on average, menopausal symptoms contributed to 3 missed work days per year. How much does that cost the U.S. economy? $1.8 billion. Again, because
Yeah.
of what we're dealing with. But I also go all the way back to when young girls first start menstruating and how many days you miss in school.
Right.
What
And
does
now
that
there's
cost?
a term for the PMDD, which
Yeah.
is the premenstrual dysphoric disorder or whatever. And it's crazy. And that's the other thing too, we have to also remember. I do believe with the FDA, like Premarin and Prempro, they are for moderate to severe menopausal vasomotor symptoms. So, and who determines who's moderate to severe?
Right.
You know, it's completely subjective.
Well, absolutely, because you figure some person over here can say, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this, my pain, whatever, and the other person's got a really high pain tolerance maybe, and they're like, yeah, I guess I do deal with those, but I just deal with it, and I go ahead and go to work, and I suck it up because I'm told to.
Right. It's expected.
It's expected, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so new research
Yes.
leading to new findings. So hormone replacement therapy should be started earlier. I'm stressing this. I hope you listen to this earlier at the onset of menopause. So we now have bioidentical hormones, different from synthetic. Hormones not only administered orally, other modalities have lower risk profiles. So let me go into that. So we're talking about, let's discuss this, the difference between estrogen, progesterone, and women doing testosterone.
Yes. Women, you do make testosterone.
And you need it.
And you need it. It makes you feel good.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I want you to understand that. I think we've hammered this, I hope, enough on the show to get you to have that realization. But don't you agree, if we go decades ago, you would hear the word testosterone and you think that's for men. And if
Right.
someone said we need a testosterone, women right away would think, well, I don't want to look like a man.
No.
Do they still say that to you still to this day?
Yeah, some.
Really?
Some. But, we start low, we go slow, we make sure we're individualizing. And the other pertinent, paramount thing of hormone replacement therapy is that you do the lowest dose that's going to make at least your symptoms manageable. I can't say that the symptoms maybe necessarily fully disappear, but you want them to be manageable.
And how quickly would someone expect to start feeling a difference when they are starting on their hormone replacement therapy?
So for estrogen and progesterone, I would expect maybe 4 weeks or so.
Okay.
Everyone's different, but testosterone can maybe take a little bit longer because I'm very cautious with that, especially in women.
Absolutely.
That could even be up to 3 weeks. So.
Julie just brought up a good point. She said you can use FSA HDA money to pay. FSA HSA money to pay. Is that true?
So I think they're all a little bit different. I would certainly try it. I mean, because they do come as a, most of them come as a credit card. And also some places will allow you to get a receipt and then turn it in on your insurance and deduct for your deductible as well. So, so some FSA, HSA, you just have to kind of read the fine print on that, but it's definitely something to look into.
But might as well try this. So what are your thoughts on, you mentioned earlier, and this is where things change for myself, doing a cream. So in the cream is what?
Estrogen and testosterone typically.
And then the oral?
The oral is progesterone. So some providers will put in progesterone in the cream, and some of them will also use DHEA, which is another, it's almost like it's before you get to the testosterone. So DHEA kind of helps to break things down, and then it gets sorted into another type of hormone. So I don't have a lot of experience with the DHEA. I'll be perfectly honest. Of the physicians and the patients that I have, I don't really do DHEA supplementation, so I can't entirely speak to that. But you would put testosterone and then your estrogens. And sometimes you could do estriol and estradiol, which are two different types of estrogens, and so they'll be called biased. So it's 80% one, 20% the other. Okay. And then you also have the testosterone. The reason why I don't put progesterone in cream is because it is less absorbed. And if you have someone that's needing the progesterone, I want to be safer, give it to them orally as a micronized progesterone. That's the bioidentical one. Because also it can help with sleep. So I usually tell them to take it at night, and then we'll do the estrogen, testosterone, and the cream.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the cream is considered safer versus the oral forms.
Well, and let's go into that. So I'm glad you just said safer. We're not saying that these don't come with any risks.
Right.
So would there be someone that shouldn't be doing this?
Yes.
And what part of our lifeline of our mother, grandparents, how far should we go to say, well, this person has this, or am I okay? Or does it have to be literally like mother or grandmother?
Most physicians, I think, really focus on the first degree relative.
Okay.
So if we're talking about myself, it would be my mother, my sister, or if I had children.
Okay.
Okay. That would be first degree. But, for instance, my grandmother had ovarian cancer.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure she was on the Premarin, and, things happen. Lots have changed. But, so I don't know that I would necessarily consider myself at risk for ovarian cancer because she's not a first degree relative.
Okay.
The other caveat is anyone who has severe heart disease that is less than 60 and within the 10 years, I would caution.
Okay.
And then anyone who has a breast cancer that's themselves or their mother, so again, first degree, breast cancer or any history of uterine cancer.
Okay, but again, these are things that should be coming up when you're in a consultation the very
and
first
then,
day.
Again, you also have the clotting factors that you need to be aware of.
Yes, I do.
So my goal as a provider is to explain the risk, and then you make the decision.
Absolutely.
So.
And for each and every one of you, whenever you listen in to these Medical Mondays, please talk with your own physician.
Yes.
And say, hey, I heard about all of this on Monica's show. What are your thoughts on this? And then have a very deep discussion, again, and then ultimately make your own decision. So previous clotting disorders currently being treated for heart disease, first degree relative or patient history of estrogen-causing cancers, breast cancer or endometrial cancers, active liver disease, uncontrolled hypertension, and then a history of severe triglycerides?
Yeah.
Okay. So those are contraindications.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on pellets?
My thoughts on pellets are they're very convenient in the sense that pellets they look like the size of a Tic Tac, basically, and they get implanted into what's like our fattier areas that us women have around our hips, usually around our like bikini line, on the back side, and they're like a steady release of hormones. Now they're going to wane. They're good for about 3 months, so they will wane off, but there's no creams involved. They're easy. You'll probably have more of a burst, especially of the testosterone right away, and then it'll slowly deteriorate. The problem with doing that when you are first starting off with hormone replacement is you just don't quite know what your dosing is going to be. And so for some people, it's best that we get you established first and then look into going the pellet route if that's something that you are interested in. Pellets are typically a little more expensive.
Okay.
And it's an inpatient, procedure in the office.
You're making a little incision.
Yes, you're making a little incision. We do numb you. You get a little scalpel incision, and then it's almost like a little tube, and you put the pellets in there, and there's this is probably going to be way too much for your viewers, but you use a little plunger, and you insert them into the fat. Now, here's the thing. You get it in there, and you don't like the way you feel on them. We can't
change
take
it.
them out.
So see, to me, and anytime I've heard any of this, I've always thought a cream is the easiest, unless people, do they think it's sticky, or what is the reason why they wouldn't want to use a cream?
Maybe it's a texture thing. I don't know. But, it's not for pellets aren't for everyone, just like creams aren't for everyone. But luckily you have these different modalities, which,
you can make
again,
a choice.
With the Women's Health Initiative, they took the results and they applied it to everything. And so in that study, they were getting oral and estrogen and oral progesterone. So that's very important to remember.
Okay.
Because it goes through the system and your liver, and it gets more systemically absorbed versus doing like the creams or the vaginal suppositories.
That was my next thing. So you actually, it was either you or it was our prior guest. I think it was both of you together. I didn't even know that was an option. I had heard of oral creams, pellets. I had heard about however many years ago, but people are also doing the vaginal?
You can do vaginal suppositories as well. It's really all about what you...
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to be real. No, I'm going to be real. To me, if I have a choice of any of that, and I didn't even know I could do a cream. When I was introduced to the cream, I'm like, this is the easiest thing. Click, click. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Or something oral. Right. But why? Okay, let's just go there. Why? Never mind. Because some of you might want to do it. I just think, why would you want to do that?
I mean,
you have to do it every single day, right?
Probably less prescribed.
Okay.
Than the creams
I would think so. Why would you want to do that every day?
I mean, there are certain medications out there that is the way that it should be absorbed.
No, thank you.
But
let's just say,
if we
no,
don't
thank
have
you.
to, that's great.
Exactly. Okay, wait. She said it sounds much worse than it is. Oh, I love pellets. Okay, so she does pellets. So the pellet, though, the only thing that I would say with that is exactly what Tabitha said, which is once it's put in, you can't adjust it. So if it's not the right dosage,
right,
you can't do anything for what, 3 months?
3 months. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that would be a problem.
I mean, but the caveat is I know people who love them. Yep. So I'm not saying that they're bad by any means.
Sure.
But, someone first starting out might be a little nervous to jump right on the pellet bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely. So. But for some people, you might get it where it needs to be and then put that into a pellet.
If that's something that they wanted to look into.
So, that it's in, they don't have to do anything with it for 3 months.
Right.
Otherwise, after 3 months, then you are making adjustments.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
And typically, once you get to that point, you're dosing.
Yep.
And they're, it's figured out by then.
Typically, if we look at everything that we've discussed, what would be the highest that you would say people use? What's the highest percentage?
I would say, well, for myself and my practice, we stick with creams. I'm not doing pellets at this time. Doesn't mean I won't do them in the future.
Right.
But I just don't have the clientele that request it.
So let's do a couple other questions. We're going to take our final break. We'll be back. If you have any comments or questions, again, for Tabitha now, or be sure to tag us when you watch this later. Just do #replay, tag myself. I'll make sure that Tabitha sees your questions. Or we'll put it up on the screen here because she is with Elemental Esthetics. You can get in touch with Tabitha by going directly to Elemental. They are located again at 425 North New Ballas Road in Suite 206. The phone number is 314-279-6069. You can also go online to elementalasthetics.com to see all the wonderful services that Tabitha and Jennifer and all of her staff provide for you. All right, our final break. We've got just a couple more things I want to discuss about hormone replacement therapy and making the right choices for you. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back at 7:59. Again, any comments, questions? Don't sit there and not ask your question. And don't think you have a stupid question. There is no stupid question, all right? We want you to get the answers that you need. And ultimately, we want you to feel the best that you could ever feel. Tabitha Braun has been my guest. Again, family nurse practitioner with Elemental Esthetics. And what we want to end with here is probably a question a lot of you have, which is why now, or maybe it will change, but why doesn't the FDA approve bioidentical hormones? Tabitha, what's the answer to that?
There's a variety of reasons. So there are a variety of reasons. There is a lack of high quality evidence of research that has not been done. And Why, I don't know, but I think it's because a lot of these compounding pharmacies, they're not, the pharmacies themselves are not FDA regulated. I mean, they do have rules and regulations they have to follow, but they're not uniform.
Right.
So when it comes to doing the research for it, they need something that they know is going to be produced identical. So if they're getting it from different pharmacies, then and they do the research on it, is it truly equal? I want to say that it is, but there may be flaws in some of the products, right? And so when we talk about compounding pharmacies, I have very reputable pharmacies that I use, and a lot of them in town, I believe, also use some of the same pharmacies. So I'm not concerned necessarily about ours, but I can't say what's happening across the country.
Sure.
So, and then if they use one form from one compounding, then they would have to make sure that they're all produced the same way.
Right.
Requires money, you know.
Always going back to the big
it's
dollar,
always
right?
coming back to money.
Yep.
So, there's a lot there. I think that we could. I think that there could be a way where, but.
I hope that at some point on
It's
this
just-
show that we'll come forward and say, remember in 2024 when we said you wanted this to be approved and then to be covered by insurance, but we have talked on this show in the past about big government and how they want to control, right? It's a whole nother show
Yes.
that we can do.
We'd be here all day.
So the FDA does not approve compounded bioidentical hormones now. I'm hoping that changes for you.
Right. They are monitored
yes.
by FDA, but they are not
Approved.
approved.
That word.
Right.
Right? So they say lack of high quality evidence, variability in composition and quality, lack of regulatory oversight, and then what are their safety concerns?
So with the safety concerns, you know how it is now through the FDA, if you're taking a medication or a vaccine or whatever, there is a portal that you can go on and you can actually report adverse effects. There isn't anything like that for bioidentical hormones. And
okay.
so if there is a bunch of adverse effects that are happening, we wouldn't really know about it.
Okay.
So there's the lack of reporting as well, but there's also not really a way to do that.
Right.
So
Well, for everybody that's tuned in today, I want you, again, the biggest thing I want you to know is that if you're dealing with any of these symptoms, and you have been, and someone has told you, oh yeah, this is just what you're going to have to deal with, don't accept it any longer. That's the biggest thing I hope is in the message. So many great messages today with Tabitha, but I don't want you ever to feel like, I have to deal with not sleeping. I have to deal with weight gain. All these things that you should have listened to, I did when I was in my 30s, thankfully, to those that had already been going through it or the beginning stages of it, to listen to, oh, that's what's coming. I've been having this discussion actually a lot with some of my friends that are in their 30s, and I said, I hope you learn from me, as I have learned from those before me.
Right.
And we'll continue to learn from those that are older than me. We have to pull the generations together because really it's about helping women of all ages.
Right.
And not a 20 and a 30-year-old saying, whatever, you're old. Right? Well,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
I'm in my 30s, and I
And you're
totally
listening.
believe that there is something because I'm headed for it as
Right.
well. So
And for that matter, Tabitha,
Yeah.
I know women that have gone through menopause at an early age in their upper 30s.
yes, and to be clear, being menopausal or postmenopausal is whenever you have ceased having periods for 12 full months. So if you make it 11 months and 29 days and
Start
then you
over.
have a period, you start over.
Yeah, that happened to
So-
me. I was
so-
like, oh, I'm not done yet.
And usually a good determinant of when that might happen for you is when your mother went through menopause.
Oh,
The
okay.
average age is like 51 to 55 years. But then there's also hysterectomies you got to take into account. And so, you know, it's not uncommon. They go through a menopause and then maybe they also experience some symptoms later in life
Right.
as well. So,
Well, again, I just want you to have these open discussions with your current provider. You want to talk with your general practitioner, with your OBGYN, talk with other family members, friends, ask them what they're going through, ask them what they're doing. If you suddenly see their quality of life so much better than yours and you're thinking, well, we're the same age, what are they doing? probably looking into hormone replacement therapy. And again, finding what works best for you, whether it is the FDA approved, whether it is an OBGYN saying, go this route and have it covered by insurance, or you look into bioidentical hormones, the natural, it's not going to be covered by insurance. But for me, I want to feel my best.
I actually had an OBGYN tell me, well, it can't be any worse. It can't be any more harmful than what you're already being treated.
Interesting.
So, you know,
again,
take it for what it's worth.
Yep.
But I think it's important that you look at how severe are your symptoms, what are your quality of life, what are your risk factors, and make the decision that's best for you.
And then once you're on it for you yourself, you will, before a refill of a cream or oral or vaginal or pellets or whatever, you are always asking, how are you feeling?
Yes.
As to whether or not you're going to adjust, right?
Yes. And then we do labs too. If we, you know,
How often
usually
do you do labs?
3 to 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Usually. It just depends. It depends on kind of how they're feeling, or if they've had like some adverse effects, then maybe I want to know what their testosterone is, you know. So it really is patient specific.
And if you look at percentages of people that come in to you, what is the percentage of men, women? Are you starting to see more and more men come for testosterone?
Not yet. I think men are a little hard to crack sometimes.
But we
they don't
want
want
you
to
all
talk about it.
Well, again, and that's
Yeah.
why we do this show, because we are talking and asking men to talk. Again, women are more apt to be sitting around wherever and talk about things like this. Where men are like, I can't talk about this. I don't know if guys are going through this. They are. Just know they are.
And men do also, they also produce estrogen. So if you're having some really terrible symptoms or feel more emotional or whatever, maybe their estrogen needs to be checked as well.
Yeah.
So
again, and it's okay, right? If you don't want to have these discussions, at least have them with someone that you trust, with your medical providers. But then I really wish you would start talking to your brothers and your dads and your friends. I actually have to thank a dear friend of mine having a discussion. This is how I found out about pellets. He was discussing it with my husband. And I was like, oh, look at you guys talking. This is good.
Yes.
And there's like, oh, yeah, dude, literally, dude, you don't have to deal with this, right? You can have pellets put in. And he's like, what the heck's a pellet?
Yeah.
That was about 3 or 4 years ago that we started hearing about that. But at least for me, it was a discussion of two men saying, yeah. Hey, you don't have to feel like this in the gym, or you don't have to feel like you can't sleep, or you don't have to have like, low libido.
Right.
I'm so glad that those discussions are happening. A lot of times it doesn't happen until the guys are getting older, maybe mid 50s, approaching 60. So hopefully that discussion will start to come into an earlier
menopause
years.
doesn't just affect women. It affects men too, because
Men.
if you're
pause.
No, not
kidding.
in that sense, but just in the fact of if you're married and your wife is struggling, it affects marriages. It affects
Absolutely
a lot
does.
of facets of our life.
Well, and I want you, hopefully, you have some patience with the women that you're involved with, and you start asking, when you hear all of this that we're talking about, that you actually are kind enough to say, hey, honey, are you dealing with this? You can help them along with it, right? Hopefully the ladies are open to having these discussions with their guys. I told you that you would do great. You were amazing.
Yeah.
Right, everybody?
She sure did.
I've been trying to get Tabitha on the show for a little while, and she was a little apprehensive and a little nervous, but you did amazing, right? So drop in any comments for how great that she did. Any comments, any questions, again, as you watch this show later. And then do me a favor and share this show with all that follow you, with your family, your friends, your followers, because you're going to give them some really important information. Again, Facebook, YouTube, and X, but then we're going to be turning some reels and stories that will also be on our Instagram and our TikTok pages, so be sure to follow all of those. All right, pick a color for me. This is our devotional that we do at the end of every show.
Purple.
Everybody picks purple.
Well, it's going to be the color of my wedding. So,
oh, wait, when are you getting married?
Next year, November 1st.
When did you get engaged?
October 19th.
Oh, congratulations.
Yay. I
Yay.
know. I'll finally be 40 and get married. There.
Oh, look at this.
Isn't that sweet?
Oh, I love it. Well, congratulations. Yeah, purple is beautiful.
Yes, so purple it is.
Okay, so 100 Days to Freedom. From Fear and Anxiety. These, if you're new to the show, we end our show with a devotional, and it's from Stephen Arterburn. Phenomenal books. We're also going to tell you about our big mini retreat workshop that's coming up this Sunday. So that in our final minutes, right when we come back.
Come on, Monica. Let's go, St. Louis. Turn and burn.
Hello, Miss Monica.
Monica.
Hi, guys. This is a good one. Sometimes you spend like 10 years and you don't got one like this.
Hi, Monica.
It's a feast. It's like a 17-course meal. You just like, you need a minute. With wine. With a wine pairing. And a whiskey pairing.
That is what. There it is.
I think I just had the most beautiful experience. I saw fireworks.
Thank you, Monica, for making our day.
Those were so fun. In fact, I was just talking to somebody the other day saying how we need to get more of our entertainment mixed back into the show, right? We've had some really incredible artists on the show. I miss doing my press junkets that I did in television, so would love to bring those back. So many things as we go into 2025 that I have on my own personal docket that I would like for the show. But you always, again, please email me, info@TheRealMonicaAdams.com, and let me know guests or topics that you would like for us to discuss as we go into the new year. All right, faithful. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is his faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. So when fear and anxiety rule our lives, we can feel as though we're on our own to deal with the unknown. I mentioned earlier the whole idea of us women feeling like we're just out here drowning, waiting for someone to throw us a life preserver. And hopefully this show has been that for you. This is sometimes referred to as the dark night of the soul. We're stretched to our emotional limits, maybe close to the edge in terms of practical resources. Some of you might be losing hope. You can spiral down so far into your anxious thoughts that you lose sight of the truth that God's faithful. Fear and anxiety create a barrier between us and the truth. We begin to believe lies like, it's over, it will never get better, or I will never get through this. This is like perfect for what we were discussing today. Yet the story's not over for you. The worst thing that can happen in our lives is not a surprise. God's present in the very pit and is there to provide a way out in his time. In this particular chapter, it describes the writer's experience of being in a pit. As you read through the verse, you may agree with them. The turning point is in one verse that says, "Yet I still dare to hope. In your distress, will you dare to hope?" God's faithful and provides grace and mercy for you today. Catherine Marshall said, God's the only one who can make the valley of trouble a door of hope. Charles Dickens said, it's always something to know you've done the most you could, but don't leave off hoping or it's of no use doing anything. Hope. Hope to the last. All right, here's today's prayer. Heavenly Father, you're a faithful God. Help me to trust you with all that I am holding on to. Help me to rest in the truth that you're able to provide a hope and a future for me. Amen to that. That one really was very fitting for what we were discussing today, right? That's the one thing that I always say, Tabitha. It's crazy. People will pick these, and I never know. They always are. It's really eerie sometimes of how it all happens. Yes. Okay, again, for all of you that tuned in, brand new watchers, diehards, that you call yourselves Monica's Maniacs, we love you all, and be sure to share this show with all that follow you. And I also want you to do me a favor and tell all of those that haven't signed up yet for our workshop, our mini retreat that's coming up this Sunday, to do so. Tickets are on sale at TheRealMonicaAdams.com. Go to our event calendar. It's called Feel the Authenticity. What does that mean? Some people have been a little confused of what's going to take place that day. You're going to be with me, and it's going to be a 2-hour life coaching session. Honestly, it's going to be what we've talked about today, getting you to feel your best, whether that's physical or whether you're struggling mentally or maybe you're struggling spiritually. I want to help you with that. We're going to have some food. We're going to have some drinks. It's going to be an open discussion, and it's going to get you to be real, right? We talk about taking pictures and how people will look at their picture and they put on their filters, but that's in life. In general, do you provide your real self, or are you putting on a mask? Are you being fake? Why are you? I want you to go into 2025 finally showing the world who you really are and being who you want to be, not who everybody else says you should be, right? So that's what it's all about, and so many other things that we're going to do. December 8th, 1 to 3 in Frontenac at Yenology, such a cool place. We did our live broadcast from there a couple months ago. 903 South Lindbergh Boulevard, Suite 110. I hope to see you there. If you go into 2025 and you think, I'm still struggling, well, I tried to help. Okay? All you have to do is come to the
Don't
workshop.
blame Monica.
Exactly. Don't blame me. Tabitha, thank you so much for coming in. I hope it's not the only time you come in. You've got a lot of really incredible information. I told you you'd have a good time.
I might come back. Although
Good.
it's really early.
I know. We will have Jennifer Warman-Bloss coming back with us in a couple of weeks with Elemental Esthetics. And if you've been, by the way, drop in a comment of what you've absolutely loved. See, Julie said, wonderful job. I told you. We love it. Again. So thank you, each and every one of you. For tomorrow, we're going to have someone who's not been in the studio here, but she was one of my early guests. Her name is Diane Isbell. Diane, known as Hats by Diane. The woman has designed hats for some of the most elite in our world. Anytime you see these incredible hats, trust me, they're from Diane. We're going to talk about dressing for success, dressing your best, first impressions as people get ready to make their New Year's resolutions. But we're also going to discuss some of the things coming up with the St. Louis Fashion Alliance. They do some really amazing things in our area. So Audra, who is with that, she's going to come in with Diane as well. So 2 guests tomorrow on our show. And then, by the way, Dot Fleshman returns this Friday she's with Coldwell Banker Gundaker. She's got some really good real estate news, but we're also going to talk about cookie exchange. Do you do cookie exchanges?
I have in the past, but I don't think I'm in one this year.
I've
I'm
never
not.
I've never done it. I've not ever done it. I don't know if I'm not a big sweets eater, but I would make some if I had to do it. I think my mom's done that before. But a lot of you do. You do these cookie exchanges. So she's going to talk about that. And if you didn't see the show with all the cookies and the pies that we showed you that she makes, you can go onto Facebook, Unique Sweets by Dot. You'll thank me later. And yes, you can order from her and her sister. They make some really mind-blowing pies and cakes. You look at them and you think they're too pretty to eat.
Now, I'm all on board when it comes to cakes and pies.
Okay, then you need to look into this. She's phenomenal. So again, some fun things to come up this week for sure. Thank you all again for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. And remember what we always tell you. Go out, be anything you want to be in this world, but before you're anything, be kind. God bless you all. Have a great day.